In this episode, I return to Florida for our refit of Balachandra. We receive an awesome gift from Total Boat. I repair our baby stay, and I replace the patch which protects our keel joint. Last time, on Sailing Balachandra, we gave you an update on ourselves and the situation with our boat, and we discussed our plans for returning to Florida to begin our refit. Hey everyone, if you're new to the channel, I'm Dan and this is Sailing Balachandra. Balachandra is a CNC 44 sailboat that my partner Noel and I sailed from Nova Scotia, Canada all the way down to Grenada in the Caribbean, and then from Grenada back up to Florida where it is now at the boatyard in Jacksonville. I am right in the middle of planning to drive back down to Jacksonville, Florida within the week and I will be documenting my trip, and I will be documenting the refit that I plan to do on Balachandra over the next month. There's going to be lots of great content for you guys. I have new products I'm going to be trying out. I'm going to be working on several projects within the boat and putting in some new materials and covering a lot of that for you guys. But right now I'm just getting packed, getting all the things I need collected and together and making all my travel plans. I'm going to be driving to Florida by car. So there's a lot to consider. It's really snowy and cold here right now, and the weather is a big factor when driving south. So hopefully that goes well. I did buy a car. That car is going to help me get around while I'm in Florida. I'm excited to go, and it's going to happen really soon. So here's the little car I bought. It's a Mazda 3. It's not a new car, but it's got lots of space in the back for bringing all the things I need down to Florida. So it should be good. As you can see, it's really snowy and cold here. And yeah, this is the conditions I've been living in for the last several months here in Canada. So yeah, pretty soon we'll be in sunny, warm Florida. Driving to Florida, doing pretty good. The sun's out, it's already 10 degrees Celsius, so starting to feel some of that heat now, which is nice. Got my car like completely full of my stuff back there. And yeah, I'm still thinking about the projects I'm going to do and how it's going to go on the boat. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. Good morning everyone. I am in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I drove here all the way from Halifax, Nova Scotia yesterday. It was a 14-hour drive, and I grabbed a quick hotel for the night before I continue on to Florida. I drove 14 hours because they're expecting a crazy snowstorm in the Washington, New York area, and I didn't want to get caught driving through snow for hours and hours, which could be pretty dangerous. So here in West Virginia, I'm looking at just rain right now, which is great. I've gotten below that point where it changes from snow to rain, so I'm lucky there. So now I can take it easy. I've just got another day of driving to get from here to Florida. So yeah, pretty soon I'll be with Balachandra again, ready to start the refit for this year. Just coming into Florida now, leaving Georgia, and I'm about 1 hour away from the boat. So I should be there really soon. It's Saturday and the boatyard is open from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock today, so that means I'll get to get aboard and have a look and maybe even do a little bit of work. It's looking really good here. It's a beautiful day. We had 28 degrees in South Carolina yesterday, so I'm assuming today it's going to be, you know, similar weather. Well, this is it. I'm here. I've arrived at Balachandra, and I'm ready to start doing some work. I'm at the marina. Everything looks pretty good, as it should be. I gotta find a ladder. But first I'm just gonna check everything out and make sure it's good, and yeah, and then the hard part starts, I guess. Yeah, she's a bit dirty. Been sitting here in Florida for about a year. Really gotta put some time and effort into this, but it'll be all right. All right, so a friend of mine, Devin, down here in Florida, brought me my boxes from Total Boat. This was a gift from the company Total Boat with some paints and epoxies and stuff that I wanted to try out, and they were gracious enough to send us these boxes, and they arrived here at the marina today, and you know, here they are. So I'm excited to get in and have a look and see what Total Boat sent us. Pretty exciting. Looks like I got some paints and some other stuff, cleaners, and ooh, there might be some swag in there. All right, I just want to give a massive shout out to Total Boat for this amazing, generous gift that they gave us here on Sailing Balachandra. I can't believe what's in these boxes. It's mind-blowing, and I'm really excited to try out these products. We're going to video all this so that you guys can get an idea of what the products from Total Boat are like in comparison to some of the other products on the market that you might be into. So let me just go over some of the stuff that they were generous enough to send us. We have this can of ablative anti-foul paint. We're going to go green. It's green colored, so you're going to see Balachandra in green. I'm pretty excited about that. They sent us 2 cans of that. We've got some marine boat soap here. It's biodegradable environmental boat soap, so we're going to give that a try. We got some boat wax for polishing, which is going to go great with the new polisher that I brought down here to polish the boat. We got some sanding pads. Got some Tyvek suits, which are really going to come in handy for doing the sanding and all the work on the hull. Generous enough to send us a couple of paint roller kits. It's pretty amazing. This is a 2-part epoxy barrier coat, which I'm going to need for when we increase the water line. I have to go over the existing stripes around the boat with barrier coat before I put bottom coat on, so I'm going to need this for that, and most especially where I'm grinding away the keel and need to fill and put barrier coat there before I paint. So this is a big one that I need, and but of course we'll try Total Boat's version here and see how that works for us. I got some non-skid deck paint, and we've got some varnish for the teak. This is Dewaxer and surface prep, which would be like using acetone or paint thinner to clean surfaces before you paint, so we're going to be trying that out. We got some containers with measurements on them for mixing epoxies and stuff, and some funnels. So this is a really amazing and generous gift that we're going to put to good use here in our refit of Balachandra, getting her back into the water. And you know, we'll see how these products hold up. I mean, I'm really excited to get started with them. So again, like a huge thank you and a huge shout out to Total Boat for sending us this stuff. It's great. Thank you. All right, so today I'm working on the baby stay. This broke on us when we were sailing, I think somewhere between Haiti and Cuba, coming across, where we were sailing downwind, and we had our whisker pole out. The whisker pole had came across the deck, and we didn't do much of this whisker pole tacking before, and anyway, we didn't even think of it, and the whisker pole had ended up breaking our baby stays.
We actually forgot to switch sides and ended up losing our baby stay. Kind of just snapped right off. That was fun. We've been going without the baby stay, and then I ended up doing kind of a jimmy rig repair. Today I am looking at replacing it now, and I have a new Sta-lok fitting that I'm going to be putting on the end of this. And I've already cut it and it's ready to go, so it's time to try to do a Sta-lok fitting. It's my first time adding a Sta-lok fitting. The boat has mostly rod rigging, and this is the only real cable rigging we've got. All right, so this is the Sta-lok swage fitting, and I needed a 1/4 inch, and all the instructions are on the back of how to do it. Should be pretty straightforward. When you take this apart, you basically just have a few components. There's the inside of the fitting. There's a little ring that's inside of there, or the bolt, I guess, and then this would be the piece that kind of does all the work and wedges inside to hold it together. All right, so the first thing you want to do is take the wire and measure back 12 inches on the wire, and then put a piece of electrical tape at the 12-inch mark. Okay, so there we go. All right, I got my tape on there. So next you want to slide this threaded part over the end of the wire. And there's kind of an outer wire and an inner wire, so what you're interested in doing is separating the outer wire, and you want to measure that back 2 to 3 inches and separate all of the wires back that far. Okay, so there, I've peeled it back. You can see that there's an inner core wire
And there's an outer wire that I've now peeled back to the approximately 2 to 3 inch point. Now that I've added the threaded part, I've separated the wires, and I've exposed the core, it's time to take this little guy here that looks like a kind of an arrowhead or something, and you put that around the core that's exposed. Yeah, it might take a little bit of force. Don't cut yourself. There we go. You want to have a little bit of the core sticking out of the end. Looks like they're asking for about 3 millimeters as far as I need it to go. It's almost there. Oh, way too far. I'll pull that back. Okay, that looks like about 3 millimeters. I'm just going to double check. 3 millimeters. Perfect. So as you can see, the core is sticking out about 3 millimeters, and I've got that arrowhead piece on there, and I'm ready to go ahead with the next step. Okay, so I got to slide this piece here down over top of all of that. So what you want to do is make sure that the outer wires are lined up and not overlapping, because I think if they're overlapping, it's going to be a little bit messy. And it's sliding down pretty good, so that's a good sign. So you want to slide that casing down, that threaded casing part. So you can see that I've got my edges here are all kind of flanged out. So once I've got it sitting roughly where I want it sitting, I have to push these flanges inward so that this piece can sit over top without catching on these wires stuck out. And of course, there's also this little ring that needs to go on there. So now that I've got it lined up, I've got my threaded piece pushed down onto here. I'm just going to give that some tension to bring it down to where it, so it's holding in there pretty good. So I can work on these loose ends here and try to bend them down. Try to bend these in as best you can with some pliers or something without making a big mess. I've got all my ends bent down so that they'll fit inside the next threaded piece at the end of the swage fitting. So next you want to take this little cup ring guy that goes inside, okay, and that goes into this fitting piece such that the cup is facing up. So that's a bit of a challenge. There we go. This is really simple. All I have to do now is slide this over the end, start threading it together. This is like a compression fitting. These pieces inside are going to compress together and lock those threads in place inside. I would say just about as tight as you feel comfortable. If this is going to be like a primary shroud or something on your boat, you'd want it to be fairly tight. Just as a rule, I would think. It wouldn't really take that much. It's a pretty decent amount of compression going on, but I'm pretty close there now. I've got it quite tight. I'm just gonna see how much more it can go. All right. It can't go any further. I'm happy with that. That's not going anywhere. So there, all done. New swage fitting for the baby stay completed. Hey everyone, so it's a chilly 12 degrees Celsius here in Florida this morning. I'm at Balachandra and I'm about to repair the filler cover that goes over the boat's keel joint. Balachandra has a lead keel. It's a wing keel, it's very heavy, and it's bolted into the structure in the bilge where the keel happens. I retightened all of the keel bolts on Balachandra back in 2019, and if you just click on this link, you can watch that video. So basically where the keel joint is, there's a layer of epoxy and then a bit of filler over top just to seal and cover that keel joint and protect it. And over the years, that patch has been saturated with salt water. Just it finds its way in there eventually and kind of destroys the patch. So I've found that so far, since I've owned the boat, I've had to repair that patch a couple times. We were in the Caribbean for 2 years. The water had gotten in and we're hauled out now. So now's a good time to redo the patch. I've already chipped away some of the old patch, and I did this sometime last year before leaving the boat to give it a chance to really dry out thoroughly. And if you come around to the other side, you can see that I've already begun removing some of that old patch, cutting it away and exposing the lead keel. This is the lead keel here. And just a small section here, you can see where the actual keel joint is, and you can see that it's still well sealed. Nothing going on there. It's well sealed along the keel joint. I have only exposed it in this one spot. The patch had given way underneath the keel joint along the lead part, and that's just typical because it's hard for epoxy and materials like that to adhere to lead and stay. And that leads to this patch, you know, constantly needing attention. My tool of choice today is this new DeWalt battery-powered oscillating tool. You know, this is usually used for getting into tight spaces and stuff, but I've been using it for a heck of a lot of stuff, and I find it's very, very good for precise cutting, and where I don't want to go too deep and cut into the keel, and I don't want to cut into, you know, the lead with like a grinder. I find that this has been working very well for what I'm doing here. Always wear some kind of breathing device when you're working on your boat, because these materials are all carcinogenic and you don't want to breathe that in. So I wear a respirator, got my gloves. Yeah, see how easy this is coming off? It's definitely unlaminated underneath, so it's got to go, be replaced. All right, all done. I was able to cut away the rest of the filler that was covering the keel joint. And you can see here that it exposed a little bit of the keel joint again right here, and especially here you can see it. And it looks pretty dry and it's clean, so there's no issue with the joint itself. Okay, so the very next thing I'm going to do is fair the edges where I had just made straight cuts, basically, back a bit with my angle grinder, just so I can kind of get more of a smoother beveled edge on there, so that when I start adding more material to build that back up, it has something to stick to. If I don't do that, it's just going to be a patch that'll probably just fall right off. It needs to bond to the materials that are already there. The first thing I'm going to add after this will be a flexible epoxy coat, and then on top of the epoxy coat I will add a filler. The filler will flatten this out and make it look clean. On top of the filler, I'm going to add an epoxy barrier coat. That is one of the products I got from Total Boat, and we'll be using that. That's exciting. And then after that, it'll be ready for bottom paint, and it'll get painted along with the rest of the boat. So here we go. Alright, so I've faired it back a bit and created kind of a flange. Alright, so the next step here is to clean this up so that I can proceed with some flexible epoxy to seal this down before I start fairing it and then preparing it for bottom paint. I'm going to use a product that was sent to us by Total Boat. This is Total Boat's Dewaxer and Surface Prep Solvent Wash, and I've used this already to clean some metal parts for adding paint and some JB Weld bond, and honestly it worked incredibly well. It really does clean up the surface. So far it seems to be better than using paint thinner or acetone, but if you had to compare it, I think it may be a little bit more like paint thinner, but it definitely has a lot of the aspects that acetone has, but we'll see. I haven't tried it on fiberglass yet. Be very careful using this stuff There are some warnings here on it, but I noticed that one of the ingredients is xylene, and xylene is incredibly carcinogenous. So if you're using Total Boat's Dewaxer and Surface Prep, you want to make sure that you have gloves on, and I mean like good gloves. I have these chemical gloves that I got from a company that does oil spill cleanups, and I use these for anything like this, where you absolutely don't want this stuff on your skin. You don't want this on your skin. You don't want any kind of product like this on your skin, even if it's acetone, especially acetone actually, because acetone contains benzene, which is also incredibly carcinogenous. So, you know, you want to be extremely careful using any solvents. But yeah, in terms of effectiveness, so far it's been great. We're going to try it here. All right, so I'm going to be using a brush to kind of work this in, and then I'm going to wipe it off with a towel. So here we go. Pour some of this in here. I'm just going to start in the middle, do a little test spot, see how she goes. Get my brush in there. With the solvent. And then just kind of rub it on. Then take a towel and wipe it to remove any dirt, grime, and stuff. And I'm going to continue in this method all the way across. That way, I'm getting in kind of deep, getting into any little holes and spaces that I need to get into with the solvent. And then, you know, collecting that here with my rag. I'm just going to go over the entire length of it like this and do the entire patch. For those of you who have been watching Sailing Balachandra long term, you would already know that I am a huge fan of West Systems G-Flex Epoxy. West Systems G-Flex Epoxy is a flexible epoxy which is extremely hard yet flexible. It's just like their typical epoxies, except it has enough flexibility in it that if there's any movement or whatever, it won't just crack. So that's pretty awesome, and I've used it for tons of things, from like filling holes to, you know, new builds. Actually, I think I used it on the chain locker door, and it, you know, came out as a nice solid finish. So I mean, you know, there's a lot of really good uses for it, and it's also been a trend lately to use it on keel joints, and so I've read. I'm going to start by doing a fillet. I'm going to thicken this stuff up with a bit of fiberglass fibers and make kind of a thicker fillet that I can fill in some of the small gaps and cracks here. Once the fillet's done, I'll be going over this with a brush and just wetting out the whole thing. I don't think I'm going to need any fiberglass mesh. You could apply mesh, you could, you know, put a nice thick fiberglass layer over this, but my purpose is not necessarily to strengthen or cover over the existing lead keel. I mean, it's just a lead keel. I just need to apply enough to create a barrier to keep the salt water out, and so it doesn't affect the keel joint. Okay, so I've relocated to the shadier side of the keel, not because for better video footage it might be a little bit dark and you're gonna have to bear with me, but epoxy is best to work with when it's cooler and warmer, and the sunny side of the keel is just too warm right now to be working with epoxy. Alright, so I'm going to start by filling this cup with some West Systems epoxy. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to add a little bit of filler to that, which I have here. It's a very fine fiberglass grind filler. I couldn't tell you what the code is or name for it anymore. I've had it for years. I'm going to be applying that filler into some of the cracks with a popsicle stick. So it's a 50-50 mix, equal parts of each. For the filler, I don't think I need that much, so I'm not going to go crazy. Now, some cups have measurements on them, and you can get really specific, but honestly, like, I've done this enough that if you get it pretty darn close, you're going to have decent results. Now, lots of people might argue that, but from my experience, I've never had problems eyeballing it. Anyway, so I'm mixing the two, hardener and resin, together now, and I'm going to add a little bit of filler. Be careful with this. I'm outdoors and I don't have a mask or anything on, but there's a nice breeze blowing things away. so I'm not too worried about this getting into my lungs right now because it's very well ventilated where I am. So as you can see, I'm mixing that together with these fiberglass fibers. So that's about the thickness and consistency. That's more than peanut butter. Now it's time to mix up some straight epoxy that's not thickened in order to wet out with this brush the exposed part of the keel in order to create a surface that's water resistant and ready for the next stage, which is going to be fairing compound, which goes straight on top of that when it's dry. And equal parts, both resin and hardener. So far I've been just eyeballing my amounts, and honestly it's been quite good because when I put the bottle down, the amount left in the bottle matches every time. So all right, here we go. It's a day later and the epoxy that I applied on the keel patch is now dry. And I'm ready to sand that down and get ready to apply fairing compound on top of that. Sanding it just to roughen the surface so that the fairing compound will actually stick. Again, I will use Total Boat's Dewaxer in surface prep to clean away any dust and residue before applying the fairing compound. Okay, I am ready to begin applying fairing compound. I'm going to be using this Evercoat Formula 27. I picked it up locally here at the boat store. Hopefully there's enough in this can to do it. If there's not, I'll have to go buy another can. And then they give you the hardener that goes with it. It's pretty straightforward stuff. So yeah, here we go. All right, the rain has finally stopped. It's been raining for 2 or 3 days, and I'm finally at the point where I can now sand the keel joint patch that I did. And I'm going to use this sanding polishing combo that I bought from Princess Auto back in Canada. And I bought this tool especially just to make polishing the freeboard area of the boat go a lot faster, but it's also got the dual ability of sanding, and it comes with this great sanding disc. So I thought this is a great time to try it out and use it on this keel joint patch I just did. And so I'll be sanding down the fairing compound, getting it smooth, and then once that's ready, it'll be time to apply a barrier coat. But for now, let's get started with this sanding. All right, so as you can see, my new sander from Canada made short work of this job. I got that sanded down in probably less than 20 minutes anyway. And it did a great job. I noticed that there's some low spots here. It's like very shallow. You could just paint right over it. There's a couple spots like right here, it's not great. I'd like to maybe do some smoothing there. So instead of buying more fairing compound, I'm just gonna mix up some epoxy and some filler and then fill these gaps with that. I just want to thank all of you guys who stuck with us while we were stuck here in Canada for the last several months preparing to return to the boat. It's been quite a while. We had to do a lot of regrouping, a lot of planning to get back on our feet after being stuck in the Caribbean due to COVID. Thanks for sticking with us and watching what videos we did put out. And I want to send a special thank you out to our Patreon supporters who have stuck with us right through this. You know, we couldn't have done all of the videoing and work and traveling that we did on the boat to bring this content to you guys without your support. So thank you very, very much. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, just go below this video, look for the big red subscribe button, press that button. And if you want, you can leave a like or a comment. And if you haven't checked out our Patreon page yet, it's always a good time to do so. Patreon's a place where you can give back. And if you like what we do, you can support us. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.